Welcome to So You Think You're Awake with Michael Sheridan.
Hi, welcome to So You Think You're Awake, the show about life transformation through dream interpretation. I'm Michael Sheridan. On this show, through analysing your dreams, I reveal your potential and the obstacles you need to overcome. I'm very specific. I tell you the magic power you have, what makes you magnificent, and the bumps in life that are holding you back. These bumps are not in the way, they are the way. To get in on the action, go to dream-analysis.com. Fill in the form and submit your dream to the show. That's it. That's all you need to do. So last week I attended a conference all week long in Canada, and I bumped into a guy called Stan, and it was like we were lifelong friends. It was absolutely fantastic. We were like two schoolboys in class trying to get away with things under the teacher's gaze. We should have been kicked out, but it was a lot of fun. So I just wanted to say thanks to our hi to our new listener, Stan. But here's another thing. People stop me all the time and they say, Michael, you're so young. Did you figure all this dream stuff out on your own? Well, on Saturday, I was a guest speaker at the Wisdom Soup Spirit Summit, a truly terrific event hosted by my friend Ann Tucker. I talked about my journey and the obstacles I had to overcome, the childhood pain I had to heal in order to grow into the magnificent and humble person that I am today. Boy, did I get emotional talking about that. Another speaker, Lisa Campion, spoke about how people's sensitivity is increasing. Light workers are noticing this. Her talk reminded me of my teacher, George Rattigan. He used to say, we are just ahead of the posse. I guess he liked cowboy films. It's true, the world is changing. Some people know it, but many don't. New energy is washing over this planet, just like the very small waves that lap the beach. They grow on top of each other, almost unnoticed until you see that the tide is already turned and you need to move to higher ground. I was with my wife in Alderwood Mall about 20 months ago, and I felt one of these waves sweep through the mall. It wasn't that little. Light workers are warned about these by our guides. Rise up with these waves or you'll get left behind. Sounds ominous, doesn't it? Get left behind. By the way, that's the only one I ever felt. I know they are happening, but it was interesting to feel one. I remember my awakening. It was frightening. I was an atheist at the time, a very vocal one, in fact. But in an instant, I wasn't. I could suddenly see spirits and guides all around people. I could see people's auras and chakras, and I could see and feel their interaction with me. It was so frightening, I nearly joined them. You might have to think about that one. But what is promised is that everyone will soon have an awakening. In 1989, I moved from the US back to Ireland, and I had to retake my driver's test. I bought a car from a friend, a very religious friend. She had it all blinged out with crucifixes and Jesus is Lord stickers and such. I removed all the paraphernalia, but one sticker she had on the windshield just wouldn't cooperate with me. It was a transparency of Padre Pio. In trying to get it off, I just shredded it. It looked terrible, like Wolverine had just taken offence to it. But my driver's test was in a few minutes, so I had to leave it. And when I got to the test centre, the first thing, the guy walks out to the car. So you do your pre-test where they ask you the questions. And the guy walks out to my car with me, sees this shredded Padre Pio sticker on the window and said, what happened to Padre Pio? And Padre Pio, for the people who don't know, is he was a priest that had the stigmata, which is like the wounds of Jesus in his hands and feet. Anyway, he then, and I think this is where I really passed my driver's test. I said to him, oh, my wife is Protestant and she tried to remove that sticker. And it was half true. But anyway, I think that's how I passed the test, is getting that answer right. But he spoke the whole time during the test about Padre Pio, and a friend of his who had met Padre Pio, which I thought was really weird because I actually thought Padre Pio was like from 400 years ago. But there you go. And he said the Padre Pio said told this guy that an event was going to happen that would reverberate around the world, and that within 30 years of that event, this awakening would be here on us. And I didn't interrupt him at all. It was amazing. It was almost like I wasn't at a test, and it was really fascinating because this happened after my awakening, as I was talking about earlier. So it was interesting to listen to him. And I had already met a guy before, and I talk about him in my first book, in the west of Ireland. And he had talked about an event that was going to happen that would change the New York skyline and various other things in America. Now, he said, well, he got the country right, but he said he thought it was going to be the San Andreas Fault was going to go because it would change the New York skyline and it would change other things. Now, clearly, after the fact, it's the September 11th, so 2001, so it's not long to go before these things are all meant to come in, but it's still interesting. But that 30 years is almost up and everyone's going to become awakened and many are going to be horrified, totally horrified by their own actions or just so shocked they won't be able to comprehend the new reality or live in it. But it is all choice. We all have free will. It's coming, and just like I was warned by my guides and my dreams, I could choose to heal my issues and rise with the tide or stay moored by my negativity and sink under the waves. I chose the red pill, and this show is just one of the consequences. How these changes are showing up now, though, is that it is far easier to activate and use your spiritual gifts than ever before. There has never been a better time. People used to spend years and years trying to develop abilities, and now you can develop them in such an accelerated way. Next Sunday, I will be running a 3-week mini course where I tell you what your spiritual gifts are from your dreams. And the price for that course is just $97. If you want more details, email me. Now, I know you're saying $97, that's crazy for three sessions. And I will be definitely doing your dreams on that. It's not like you watching me do other people's dreams, although you will do that too. So now let's do some dreams on this show. And I promised this last week where I was going to cover dreams that covered a lifelong illness and their solutions, or really their cause. But when you see their cause, that points towards the solution. And so I'm going to start with that this week, just so that we definitely don't miss it. And I'm going to add in other dreams, again, on topics that I normally wouldn't cover. And I'm going to cover it because I have a friend of mine, Joliane Tremblay, is going to join us later in the show to talk about what you can do if you're concerned about an illness that, say, is prevalent in your family, and you're wondering what can you do to avoid getting it. So prevention. Anyway, this dream is from Lynn. She gives us a little intro. It's a slightly long dream, but it's useful that it is for this purpose. She says, this is similar to a recurring dream theme where I have befriended lions that became dangerous to me when I run out of meat. And she says a lot more than that, but that's the part I'm going to include, or just tell you in advance. Lions obviously tell us that she's a leader, but that's not what this dream is about. So she's a spiritual leader. That's one of her gifts. But I mention it because it's going to be interesting for Lynn to know. Here's her dream. I'm in a small house on the edge of a forest. John M., my birth mother's ex-husband, built this in his backyard. Although the small house has many of the amenities of an actual house, it doesn't feel like this was intended for someone to live in. So straight away we know that the small house is to do with being in the womb. And we see something later on that brings us back to that. And that's really super important. And she says it was on the edge of a forest and it was in someone's backyard, 2 symbols that indicate the elimination system. And she says, I'm here because I've been feeding some of the wolves that live in the forest and beginning to bond with them. It hasn't taken very long for this to happen. I'm lying on the wood floor, another symbol for elimination system, with one of the wolf pair on either side of me, a male and a female. I'm petting them and they seem happy. They aren't much bigger than dogs and act a lot like them. I notice that the male wolf is getting a little restless. I realize I haven't fed them for a while. Their friendliness probably depends on the food, so I should feed them again soon. I look in the refrigerator and I see that all I have is week old meat left over from the last feeding. I'm pretty sure their systems can handle rotten meat, but I'm not certain it's a good idea. The last time I fed them a high quality varied meal. Now I wrote to her, this is a lot more of the dream and I'm going to cover it. I wrote to her and I asked her if she had physical problems with her elimination system and if she had to eat meat on a regular, or eat food on a regular basis, like not let her system get empty, because that's what we see here. And she wrote back and she said, I do have physical problems and difficulties with digestion. It's been a significant, almost lifelong problem. I've never really liked meat, but I do seem to need it. I may occasionally eat a suspicious leftover, but it's pretty rare. I learned not to do this the hard way. And that was, of course, directly related to another part of a question I asked her. She said, I feel more grounded when I have some meat in my diet, although I'd rather be a vegetarian. And now here's a really big issue. She says, I was adopted, so I'm guessing the time immediately after birth was upsetting and maybe traumatic. I was immediately taken from my mother and kept at the adoption centre for the first month or two. Now, I asked her that question, what happened at the start of her life, because we'll see it later on in the dream. She then continues, she says, I don't go periods of time without eating because I can't. I have weird issues where my body completely flips out if I don't eat on a very strict schedule. Like the wolves, I get restless and angry, among other symptoms. I've had lifelong issues with depression. Yeah, that's for the next bit that we'll cover. Okay, so we'll go back to her dream. So we see how her reality matches the dream where she needs to eat or her body will turn on itself. And that's what this is about. And there's a reason for that. Our bodies just don't start off with the idea of, hey, let's digest ourselves or let's attack ourselves. Something has to happen to trigger it. And we see it in her dream, what it is, what happened. She says, the next thing I know, I see my cat in the yard. He has somehow escaped the safety of the main house and is vulnerable to a wolf attack in the yard. Now, a cat and the backyard are also about the stomach and digestive system as well. In fact, the cat is one of the most common symbols for it. I get the wolves out of the house and rush to grab my cat. I throw the meat out for them before I do this. There are 2 doors to the small house on opposite sides. One faces the yard of the big house, which is Mom. So remember, she's in this small little house. So this is her in the womb. So one of the doors faces Mom with the forest to the left and the house to the right. The other opens directly into the forest. Neither of these doors will latch. The wolves come close into the house at any time simply by pushing on the doors. They have never done this and probably wouldn't think to, but it's possible. And here now the dream moves on. So we know, okay, it's to do with issues around Mom because she mentions Mom's house is there and she mentions that the forest is there. And the forest is a really classic symbol for elimination system. So anyway, the colon in particular. She says, there is a shower stall on one wall of the main room of the house with a glass door. So when we see Mom's house being mentioned, or the big house being mentioned, and then a shower stall, we know that she has to clear issues around birth that she picked up at this time in her life. And that's going to help her because it's those issues that are causing the problem. Anyway, she says, I decide to put the cat in there so he'll be safe. Then I start trying to fix the back door. I try numerous things to get the door to latch, but nothing works. Even when the door is locked, it can still be pushed open. While I'm doing this, the cat pushes the shower door open and comes out into the main room. Apparently, the shower door doesn't latch either. I keep trying to fix the back door, and then suddenly the cat is sneaking through it. So again, this is like, she's not being led away with closing the door on this and not dealing with it. This is something she has to do. I grab for the cat, knowing that if he gets out, he'll run and I'll never catch him. The wolves will have easy prey. He escapes my reach and makes it outside, but he doesn't run. I'm able to step outside and pick him up, bringing him safely back into the house. Well, that's good. There are raccoons outside the back door of the house now. They're somewhat small and very cute. Under normal circumstances, I might want to feed them too, but I scoot them away, afraid they might hurt the cat. It's a good sign that they've avoided being a meal for the wolves, but they have wild instincts, unlike my cat. Maybe I will feed them later when the door is fixed. No, you don't. Don't ever feed the raccoons in your dream. So this is you flirting with a pretty bad illness that you don't have, but it's flirtation with it. And we see it in the next dream that you give me, which is much shorter, is much more to the point, and I'm going to cover that as well. But here you say anyway, and here's the solution. If we ignored everything else in the dream, this is the part you need to focus in on. I need to find a safe place. Oh, I should say, she goes out and picks up the cat, even though she thinks because the cat got out that's it, it's over. So it's like going out and dealing with the issue in the past and rescuing yourself is what's going to help you, despite the fact that you think it's going to be all over if you go out that door in the dream. Well, all over for you because you think it's all over for the cat. Anyway, I need to find a safe place in the house to put the cat while I work on the doors. There's one other room off the main room. I look in there and see that it looks like a storage room, much like a garage or basement. It has open rafters and metal shelves with garage-type items on them. I don't feel like the cat would be safe in there. He could get lost in many different places. Off this room, there's a short, square tunnel that leads to another shower. I remember John showing this to me when he first built it. There wasn't room for a normal shower, so he built this tiled hallway that you have to crawl through to get to the shower. That was the only way it would fit. It's a little strange and inconvenient, but it's workable. The shower itself is fairly large, and you can stand up once you're in it. I decided I can't put the cat in there either, mostly because there is no door between the shower and the storage room. Okay, well, it's a pity you didn't put the cat in there. So this crawl space, like crawling in to get to the shower, crawling in the dream through this narrow constricted space, is about you being born. And so the dream is saying, like, symbolically putting you back at that space and putting 2 showers around you. So it's saying, this is something that you've got to clear. You've got to cleanse the issues that you picked up from this time in your life. And you've carried it all the way through. So you probably can't think of a time when you didn't have digestive system issues, but sometimes it can take a little while for them really to kick in. And you also mentioned in here about a safe place and storage room and so on. So this is what you've got to deal with. Clear the issues that you picked up then that cause you to look for security, and get rid of the things that you stored because of how you came in. And you told us that it was immediately after birth was upsetting and traumatic. And you said maybe traumatic. That's hilarious, really. You said you were immediately taken from your mother and kept at the adoption centre for the first 2 months. So that's not maybe traumatic. That's extremely traumatic. And we seem to think that children are okay because they don't express their feelings so well at that age. But that's not true at all. Because of all the dreams I do, the number of times we see that the issues go right back to in the womb or immediately after birth. And usually up to age 2, by about age 2, again, up to a time when we wouldn't consider a child that malleable, all the conditions that we're going to manifest in our life, including how we're going to leave the planet, have already been locked in based on our reaction to what's going on around us at the time. So, yeah, I mean, you've put your finger on it, you know it's there, but you just don't realise how important it is. Now, before getting Jolyon on, and I'm looking at the clock, you say here, another dream, I'm going down the street in a car when a crow flies in the open window. The crow is injured in some way. So the injury is you're the one that's injured. And a crow is a symbol for cancer. And this is a warning dream, a strong one. And so are the other symbols in your other dreams were warnings of the same condition. I take the crow to the house I grew up in. I think she has a broken wing. So again, taking you to where you grew up, and the broken wing is like this is linked to back then. That's where the healing needs to be. But I'm not sure. All I know is feed her and hope that time will heal her. She's made a sort of a nest for herself of one of the kitchen cupboards. So kitchen again tells us it's digestive and elimination system on top of the plates. She opens the cupboard herself to go in and out. The rest of the time she freely roams. And then you say there is something about her having a baby crow. Now that's not something we ever want to see in a dream. So really what you need to do in this dream is kill that crow, kill the babies. And that sounds horrible, I know, but it's a symbol that you're killing. You say, my parents are out of town, but coming home soon, as is often the case in my dreams about the house I grew up in. I'm cleaning in preparation for their return, doing dishes. I'm concerned that they'll be upset. And so that gives us a clue. It's not just the very start of your life, it's also then where you grew up and the issues there. So with that, I'm going to put the headphones on and we're going to talk to Jolyon. And can you hear me, Jolyon?
Yes.
How are you doing? Thanks for joining us. And I wanted to talk to you because you've worked with clients of mine before and you have a system called regenerative detox that I thought would be perfect for. So I help people all the time, even though I don't cover it on the show. I help people who have warnings of cancer in their dreams. I also help people who actually have cancer and don't know, and I send them to the doctors and get checked and they get operations. It's a very clear and obvious symbol in dreams. But there are a lot of people that have concerns because they have family members or people in their related family who have had cancer and they're worried that they have the gene or whatever it is. And you run a course that helps people who have those concerns. And so that's why I wanted to talk to you today. But first of all, I wanted to ask, what got you started in this field?
Oh, thank you, Michael, for inviting me on the show. Yes, so what got me started in that field is I hit the wall. I hit the wall at some point in my life. I found myself in a hospital bed and having type 1 diabetes as an adult. And I was in the hospital for a few days, and I have a lot of time to think. And what came to me was that if I created this condition in my body, I can uncreate it.
Yeah.
So I started to look into healing type 1 diabetes, and there was not that much information on the internet. So I did a little bit of research and found out, okay, type 1 diabetes, autoimmune, often autoimmune, you'll get a lot of information about healing cancer. So I did a lot of information, I did a lot of research on how to heal cancer. And this is exactly how I got in the field of regenerative detoxification, how to heal the body.
And this worked for you. So you went from having type 1 diabetes and taking insulin regularly to getting to a point where you no longer needed to take insulin. And
yes,
you help other people do that.
yes, exactly. So I help other people to clean up their body so that they're changing the environment of their body so that they don't create illnesses or diseases in their body.
Okay. So the focus really being, like you did it after the fact, and you said that a lot of the the research for diabetes and cancer prevention are really the same. And what I do find interesting, though, is I have to say this because I know people with diabetes, and the information that they're given by nutritionists in the hospital flies in the face of what anybody who has the condition and is able to treat it with diet. They will tell you to eat completely different foods than what nutritionists in hospitals will eat, which I find really interesting. And one person that I know, her father had diabetes, so she stuck to the diet that they tell you to use in the hospitals because she never wanted to get it. Again, of course, fearing that it was genetic. But she got it. And then she goes to the hospital and the training, and they tell her to eat the diet that she's already on. And so she went and worked with you, and her numbers, her sugar level just absolutely plummeted to within 8 points of normal within about 30 days following the diet that you told her to take. So I just want to say I have experience of people I know who are close to me working with you and the results they get. But your program is not about diabetes. Your program is about cancer. That's specifically what you help people with. Or is it more than that? Do you...
Yes, more than cancer and diabetes, actually. I don't limit myself to any specific conditions. What I do is help people that are suffering, that are willing to do what it takes to heal themselves.
I like that. You slid that in there. People who are willing, willing to do what it takes. So here's a question. Are diets different depending on what you have or what you're trying to avoid?
Well, not really, actually. I'm happy that you mentioned that how the diet is recommended in hospitals and dietitians to avoid diabetes, that it actually created an environment for diabetes. The thing is, I believe that there's a lot of confusion, and there's a lot of outdated information in that field. And so, if the information shared in hospitals and by the medical community was right, then I believe that the number of people healing from these conditions would be higher, right? But what's happening, as you notice, is that people in general are getting sicker and sicker.
Yeah.
So it's time to question ourselves. It's time to question ourselves and ask, like, is it really bringing me in the right direction?
I know a doctor.
Yes.
Who works in the theater where they do the amputations on diabetics, and she said that she has her own program that she runs that's outside the hospital because she's not allowed to mention it in the hospital, because she said it's just a conveyor belt. If you follow everything you're told to do, you're on the conveyor belt that will eventually bring you into the operating theater. And she said, like, if they see somebody, and this is people who are following everything they're told to do, she said that if they have somebody in who gets a toe amputated, they'll be able to mark the calendar and say, we expect this person back on this date to have the rest of their foot amputated, which I think is absolutely horrendous to hear a doctor say that's what they expect. So then definitely something needs to change. Something needs to change.
Yes, exactly. And the good news, Michael, is that it's not a specific diet depending on the condition.
Okay, good.
So it makes it a lot easier for everyone. The main goal, the main idea is to alkalize your body. And not just by drinking like alkaline water, but really by nourishing yourself from food that are alkalizing, and obviously reducing the foods that create an acid ash in the body, or foods that create inflammation or acidosis.
So I talked to you before the show to try to understand that, and I don't understand it. But you customize your program for each individual that you help. That's the important thing. And what I found interesting when talking to you is you could eat something that's acidic and you say that, but that has an alkaline ash. In other words, that its effect on your body after you eat it, because of the way it's broken down by your body, is to create the correct condition. It's not what's in the food in the beginning that's important. It's an impact on the body. So I'm looking at the clock and we're running out of time. So I just want to give your email address. It's or your website. It's joliannetremblay.com, which is JOLIANETREMBLAY.com. And if you go to /regenerative detox, that's where you'll get the information about your program. And thanks again for joining us. And I want to finish on a really short, positive one. It's also about cancer, but it's what you want to see in your dreams. I dreamed of killing 2 rats. One normal small grey rat ran away, and one orange in colour, like made of wires or a toy. And it's the one I killed. So that's what you want to see in your dreams. If you have dreams about cancer, you want to see you killing the cancer like that. So that's my show for this week. If you want me to analyse your dreams, go to dream-analysis.com. I'm looking for my proper end page, and I don't have it marked here, because I do want to say one thing. As I said earlier, I'm running a 3-week mini course. Details will be posted on my website. I also have a free webinar this Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. The sign-up form for that is already on my website, dream-analysis.com. And that's it. So until next week, I'm Michael Sheridan.